If you get this wrong, you'll lose the listing before the conversation even gets started. Executors and heirs don't want a salesperson. They want someone who shows compassion, empathy, and that they truly understand what they're going through. Probate listings are emotional, not just transactional. And unfortunately, many agents lose sight of this. They go in like it's a regular listing, gangbusters, and they forget that these are people who have lost a loved one. They're grieving, they're confused, and many times they might even be fighting with each other. Many agents cross the line by being too pushy, too direct, too impersonal. The key to winning a probate listing is balancing competence with compassion. When you do this, you're showing that not only do you care, but that you are actually interested in helping. My name is Sharon Smoot. I'm a realtor and a residential real estate closing attorney, and today I'm going to be talking to you about how to talk to executors and heirs so that you can get the listing. The first thing that I want to talk to you about is things to say, the do's, in other words. So the first thing that you want to do is acknowledge the situation. Unfortunately, many of us are very uncomfortable when it comes to death, especially when we're meeting with a stranger. But I say address it head on. The first thing you should say is, I know this must be a very difficult time for you and your family, and I'm here to make it as easy as possible for you. Just let me know when you're ready to discuss next steps. Something like that. You're acknowledging it, you are showing that you want to help, and it shows compassion and empathy. The next thing that you want to do is make sure that the family knows that you understand that they want to be in control. I think one of the biggest mistakes that you can make is just being too aggressive and too eager. So, what you might want to say is, would it be okay if I shared with you how I've helped other families in your situation? And if this is your first probate listing, you can kind of switch this up and say, would it be okay if I shared with you how I think I might be able to help your family? Now, another thing to keep in mind is that they're probably not going to be ready to sign the listing agreement on that initial listing appointment. Not very different from the typical real estate listing, right? But when you're dealing with a probate listing, it is so important that you be patient yet consistent. So you're going to want to follow up every 2 to 3 weeks or so. But your follow up isn't going to be, hey, have you decided who you're going to list the property with? Are you ready to sell yet? When do you think you'll be ready to put it on the market? No, those aren't the questions that you're going to be asking. The questions that you're going to be asking are ones that show your goal is to be helpful, your goal is to be a resource. And so, my advice is to put together a list of vendors who could be helpful in a situation where a family is having to go through and organize and decide what to keep, what to get rid of, what to throw in the trash, what to sell. So maybe you can put together a list of entities that haul away junk. You don't want to call it junk, personal property, but you get catch my drift, right? You might want to have a list of vendors who specialize in organizing, decluttering, and purging. Those are the types of things that families in this situation need. And it's just a way to show that you are truly interested in being helpful to them, that you're not there to be pushy, you're not trying to apply pressure or anything like that. So now I want to talk to you about some things that you should never do. The first is to lead with a sales pitch. You don't want to go in saying things like, oh, I'd love to sell your mom's home, or I'd love to sell your sister's home, or this is a really nice house and I think you'd get top dollar for it. When can we put it on the market? It just sounds self-serving, like you don't give a damn about what they're dealing with, about their grief and their emotional upheaval. So never lead with a sales pitch. Another thing that you should never do during that first conversation is to ask really personal or legal questions. Don't ask, has the will been offered for probate? Has the executor been named? Do you have the letters testamentary or not? Now, they might bring those things up. And if they do, then that's an opening for you to have those conversations. But your goal during that initial conversation should not be to delve into all of that personal and legal stuff because it just makes you seem like an incompassionate jerk. Another thing that you should never do is criticize the house. Yes, it might be outdated, it might be messy, but never say those words. Never say those words. And the thing about it is that there will be a time for you to address those types of issues, but it shouldn't be in the very first meeting. You have to remember that more likely than not, there are a lot of memories tied to that house. And when you start criticizing, it's going to turn those prospective clients off. So now I just want to go over some phrases that you should incorporate into your presentation when you're meeting with people who are dealing with a probate situation, and phrases that you should avoid. So the first phrase that you should use is, I specialize in helping families going through transactions like this. It shows compassion without being pushy. It shows that you have a level of expertise without being salesy. It sounds professional without being predatory. Another phrase that you might want to incorporate into your presentation is something like this. My goal is to make this process as stress-free as possible for you. This focuses on service, not sales. Another phrase that you can use is, when you're ready or when the time is right, I can walk you through all the steps of the process so that you have a good understanding of what to expect. This shows that you're not trying to take control of the situation, that you're there to offer guidance without running the show. You're acknowledging that the family needs to play a role and that you want them to take the lead and let you know when they're ready to proceed to the next phase. The next phrase that you should use, and this one is really, really important, is something along the lines of, every family situation is different, and I don't want to take anything for granted. So do you mind if I ask you a few questions? This shows curiosity, compassion, and care without being too intrusive. Now let's talk about some phrases to avoid. You don't want to be this agent. Don't walk in the door asking, are you ready to sell? You're being pushy, overbearing, aggressive, and you're not showing any compassion or empathy for the fact that these people have suffered a loss. They've suffered a death in their family. If you got the lead by reading the obituary section of the newspaper or from a list from the probate court, there's no need to reference that. Now, if they ask you, be honest, but never volunteer that information because it really doesn't matter. And, it just seems kind of callous and morbid. Okay, another phrase that you should definitely avoid is anything like, I can help you sell it fast and for top dollar. This shows that you are tone deaf to the fact that this family is grieving. It sounds callous. It sounds like you're just a money grubber and really more concerned about getting a quick commission than actually helping the family go through this difficult process of not only grieving, but having to sell their loved one's home. Then you also want to be careful of the words that you use. For instance, you don't want to say, I can help you liquidate the property. It just sounds so transactional, so cold, so impersonal. So just use normal words. When you're ready, I can help you sell your mom's house. Just normal, just caring and compassionate. So when the time is right and the family is ready to have a more detailed conversation about the process, you still want to be sure to lead with service, not sales. That's really, really important. I can't emphasize that enough. So you want to offer information first. You might want to say something like, here's what typically happens in a situation like yours, and then go on and explain the process step by step. You want to have helpful information at the ready to provide to your prospective clients. This could be information about preparing the home for sale. It could be information about what to expect at closing and the types of information that the closing attorney might ask them for. You could have a handout about the duties of an executor or an administrator. Very, very helpful information, again, that shows that you care without being pushy and applying too much pressure. Now, there may be opportunities to refer your prospective clients to other professionals, whether it is a housekeeping company, whether it is a probate attorney, whether it is a clean out company or an appraiser. So be prepared to have those resources available, those contacts available in the event that you're asked for them. By leading with service and not sales, it positions you as a resource, as someone who wants to help and who truly cares versus a greedy and compassionate shark who's just circling the listing, hoping to get that bite. So it's important to recognize family dynamics. Death tends to bring out the worst in people. I think most of us who have big families, we have experienced that in one form or fashion. So it is critical that you stay neutral. And sometimes that's a lot easier said than done because you might feel more of a rapport with one of the heirs and not with the others. Or one of the heirs might just be, being super difficult and all the other heirs are in agreement with what to do with the property. And this one is just being a jerk. And so your tendency is to side with the ones who are easier to deal with than the one who's being difficult. But whatever the case may be, it is important to stay neutral. And to that end, if you are in the midst of an argument, you got to play referee and just say something like, look, it sounds like you all have the same goal in mind, but maybe you have differing ideas about how to reach that goal. I'm here to help you find common ground. I'm here to help you find a solution so that we can achieve that common goal that you share. Things like that. And every situation is different, so you don't know what you might encounter if there is conflict between the heirs, but you need to be prepared to respond appropriately and in a neutral way. Another thing that's very, very important for you to understand is when to take a step back. Maybe the family isn't emotionally ready to list that property. Maybe they're still handling legal stuff. They're going through probate. Whatever the case may be, if you get a sense that they're just not ready, don't press. Instead, say, look, I know that you're going through a lot and that you may not be ready right now, and that's okay. Would you mind if I reached out to you in about a month? And then put them on your calendar for a follow-up call in 30 days. This shows that you are not trying to pressure them. And again, it shows compassion and empathy. Now, the last thing that I want to remind you of is that you don't have to feel like you need to be a therapist. You just want to show compassion and empathy because losing someone is hard. I lost my mom just over 2 years ago. It was hard. And when I think of some of the phone calls that I got from her creditors, some of the phone calls that I got from real estate agents and real estate investors, it was awful. I felt like they were vultures circling. So just remember that compassion and empathy, coupled with professionalism, builds trust and rapport. And if you're able to build a solid foundation of trust and rapport, there's a good chance that you'll get the listing. If you found this video helpful, be sure to download my probate listing checklist, and the link to that will be in the description.